From the moment you crave absolute freedom to break free from the shackles of dependency and master your life, you've stepped into a game whose rules are hidden. Do you think money buys freedom, opening every door? But the harsh truth is, the more money you have, the more you are bound by invisible threads, subtle obligations you're unaware of. There's an unspoken rule that the elite, those who truly hold power, always adhere to. Money is merely a tool, not the ultimate goal. It's bait, an invisible net to control the naive, those blindly chasing the illusion of wealth. Niccolò Machiavelli, the master of power and manipulation, saw through this centuries ago. He understood that freedom isn't something that can be bought with money, but a relentless battle to seize and maintain. Here's how you can begin to free yourself from that illusion. See those invisible chains and learn to turn the tables, making money your slaves instead of the other way around. You may not yet realize that every dollar you earn, every investment you make, could be tightening the invisible collar around your neck rather than loosening it, pushing you into a labyrinth of obligations. Until now, you've merely been a puppet in their play. Most people, in their quest for security and liberation, make a fundamental mistake, an illusion that has been subtly ingrained. They believe money is the ultimate, even sole means to achieve financial freedom, thus leading to a life free of worries and constraints, an earthly paradise. This belief, not coincidentally, is skillfully propagated through every story in the glamorous media, every lesson in the mainstream education system. It is a dangerously devastating misconception, a sweet trap laid out with promises of ease. You are taught to work hard, accumulate, invest, and then one day you will be free. But the naked truth, far more brutal, is that the true mechanism of power and freedom operates completely contrary to what you have been indoctrinated with. Money doesn't buy freedom, it buys dependency, a deep and sophisticated dependency, almost invisible, on complex financial systems, on the incessant fluctuations of the global market that you cannot control, and especially on the cold well of the individuals and organizations powerfully controlling its entire flow. Those who genuinely hold power, these architects of this system, these manipulating puppet masters behind the velvet curtain, understand that when you accumulate wealth, you are not merely accumulating material assets or inanimate numbers in a bank account. What you are truly accumulating is an immense burden of responsibility, heavy and undeniable legal and moral obligations, and above all, a persistent, silent fear that gradually erodes the mind, the fear of loss. This fear is not just an emotion. It is the strongest, most exquisite, invisible chain, forged from the very things you desperately wish to protect, trapping you in a vicious cycle of pervasive anxiety, excessive caution to the point of paralysis, and ceaseless, energy-draining calculations just to protect what you already possess. The powerful are not simply those who earn more money.
They are the ones who create and control the system where money is the lifeblood, the essential energy flow, but they are also the ones who regulate its blood pressure, ensuring it flows in the direction they desire. They never, not for a single tiny moment, let you be truly free with it, because absolute financial freedom for an individual would be a direct threat, a serious disruption to their structure of control that they have meticulously built. They need you caught in the endless vortex of dependency, constantly striving for what they define as freedom, a carrot dangled before a donkey. Have you ever paused, cast aside all social facades, and honestly asked yourself, why, despite having more money in your bank account, your life seems more stressful, tenfold busier, and ironically you have less real time for yourself, for your passions, for your loved ones? Do you feel caught in an endless loop, a cruel grind, where every financial success demands a tenfold greater sacrifice of time, depleted energy, and even erodes deep personal relationships? Do you realize that your daily financial decisions, from which investments sound safe, what luxury items to buy to assert status, to how you manage every penny of your spending, no longer stem purely from a desire for true free will, or your core, profound values, but from a deeper, primal fear? The fear of losing what you have, the fear of maintaining the magnificent facade of wealth or social status you painstakingly built, or the fear of being judged by society when you are no longer on par with others. These are the undeniable signs of the invisible prison, of the mental shackles you face every day, even if you are unaware. Imagine money as a raging, ceaseless river, powerful and unpredictable. For the weak, those who only passively accept their fate, that river is the only source of life, a fragile hope to irrigate their barren land, bringing a little livelihood, but it's also a dangerous current, fraught with peril that can sweep them away at any moment if they're not careful, binding them to a ceaseless, exhausting struggle just to hold their precarious ground on the bank or to swim against the current in vain. This flow of money, you must understand, does not occur naturally by divine will. It is tightly controlled by colossal dams, by complex canal systems that those who truly hold power have painstakingly built, operated, and protected. The gaze of these manipulators, these brilliant engineers of the financial flow, is like invisible spider silk threads, delicate but unyielding, spun everywhere, from the deepest reaches of complex banking systems to every smallest corner of the global stock market, from vague, abstruse tax policy clauses to social relations built on calculated mutual interest. Every dollar you gain, every transaction you make is not a step towards freedom, but a small knot. A subtle, invisible, yet incredibly strong connection on that web. The more you struggle, the more you try to accumulate what is called freedom through money, the tighter that spider web finds you, making you a helpless prey, unable to escape their sophistication encirclement. True freedom is not about owning many prey, not about accumulating much wealth. It is the ability to recognize and then skillfully untangle each thread, each knot, each seemingly harmless connection until their web of power is no longer strong enough to hold you, to control you. This is just the beginning of a profound paradigm shift, a revolution in perception that you must embark on. To truly escape this sweet trap, this financial labyrinth you have unknowingly entered, you must execute a radical shift in mindset, a complete transformation from being a victim controlled by money to being the controller of money, the wielder of power. Freedom, in the eyes of Machiavelli and those truly powerful, the ultimate masters of manipulation, is not a distant destination you will reach when you have enough money, when you achieve a specific number in your bank account. It is a continuous state of control, a ceaseless power. Control over natural and human resources, control over the flow of information and knowledge, and most importantly, control over yourself and your emotional reactions to external pressures, to every vicissitude of life.
The first tactic applied by the powerful is not diversifying investment portfolios in the shallow, passive way you often hear from ordinary financial experts, but diversifying points of control to decentralize dependency on any single source. The weak, always seeking security based on public advice, will diversify assets into various types of investments, stocks, real estate, bonds, merely to minimize risk and seek fragile security. But the powerful do so for an entirely different reason, a deeper strategic motive. They disperse control across various resources, economic sectors, and key relationships to ensure no one, no force can completely cut off their flow of power and finance. They have many faucets from which money, information, and influence flow continuously, ceaselessly. And if one faucet is closed or one source is interrupted, others remain open and can even compensate quickly and effectively. This is not about the number of bank accounts or investment portfolios you own. It's about the number of strategic points of control you firmly hold within the system. The number of influential relationships you've painstakingly built and nurtured, the number of exclusive and early sources of information you can exploit to gain an advantage. Each point of control you establish is a knot in their network of control that you have skillfully grasped, a new foothold, thereby minimizing your dependency on a single source. You don't just defend passively, you attack by creating your own strongholds right within enemy territory, turning their weaknesses into your strengths. This truth might shock you to your very core, overthrowing every definition of money you've ever believed. Prepare yourself for what you are about to hear, as it will challenge all your core beliefs, every firm foundation you've built about wealth and financial security. The second tactic, using debt as an ultimate tool of powerful leverage, not a burdensome chain of financial slavery. This is one of the most closely guarded secrets passed down within the elite, those who stand at the pinnacle of power. The weak fear debt, seeing it as a symbol of weakness, a financial burden that can destroy their future, shackling them to an endless cycle of repayment, a vicious circle with no escape. But the powerful, those who have assimilated and applied Machiavelli's brutal yet realistic philosophy, view debt from an entirely different perspective. They use debt strategically, with clear intent, to control others' resources, turning borrowed money into an unfair competitive advantage for themselves, an unbeatable weapon. They understand that debt is a financial commitment, a binding agreement. But when that commitment is on your side, when you are the borrower and wisely, calculatedly use money to create tenfold greater value, you are the one in absolute control. You are not controlled by the debt. On the contrary, it is the lenders, the giant banks, the complex financial institutions who are controlled by their enormous investment in you. They have a core, vital interest in your success, and therefore they will support you, even help you overcome every difficulty, because your collapse is also their collapse. Smart debt is not about buying liabilities that drain your cash flow, making you poorer every day. It's about using borrowed money to acquire assets that generate sustainable cash flow, businesses with exceptional profits, real estate that generates income exponentially. When you master debt, you master the game. You hold destiny in your hands. You become a lord of capital who dictates the flow of currency, making others serve your ultimate goals. This is the highest art of transforming risk into opportunity, turning a potential burden into an unforeseen strategic advantage, a sharp financial weapon few dare to wield, and even fewer can master. Do you think you know everything about money? You are mistaken. The next truth will unlock an entirely new dimension of power, a world you've never imagined existed, an unparalleled strength. The third, and perhaps most crucial, most supreme tactic. Informational power is supreme power, far surpassing all monetary value, every colossal fortune you might accumulate. Money, no matter how potent it seems, no matter its ability to buy everything, is still a finite piece of publicly available and priced information, easily copied and dispersed. Exclusive information, deep, timely, and unavailable insights are the infinite resource capable of shaping the world, turning the tide. The powerful don't merely earn money or accumulate assets. They earn information. They hunt for information. They invest relentlessly, with persistence and patience, in building unique networks, in establishing confidential, reliable sources, in cultivating strategic relationships that can provide them with exclusive insights, insider information, before they become public knowledge, before the market or the general public has time to react. When you have early, high-quality information, you can not only shape the market, manipulate it at will, you can predict major shifts, economic and social upheavals. You can create golden opportunities that others are still oblivious to, unaware of. You don't just trade based on existing data, those dry numbers. You create the data. You create the trends that others will have to react to, will have to chase unconsciously. They control the flow of opportunity by controlling the flow of information. Money, in this context, is merely a slow-reacting, crude tool against the boundless might of information. Whoever has the best information has true power, absolute power. That's why closed-door meetings, private dinners, whispered conversations among the powerful are more valuable than any stock exchange, more valuable than any transaction. You can possess billions of dollars, but if you're clueless about upcoming information, about subtle shifts, you're still just a small pawn in someone else's hands, easily manipulated. Become the one who holds the strings of information, the controller of the flow of knowledge, and money will automatically flow to you like an unending, abundant stream. Now, face the most brutal, naked truth about the nature of freedom and power that deep within your subconscious you still crave, still silently pursue. This is the ultimate twist, a shocking truth Machiavelli wants you to engrave into your mind, into every fiber of your being. You are not seeking financial clarity or a state of carefree ease. You are seeking power. Money is not the ultimate goal, not the final destination of all efforts. It is merely a form of energy, a conductor. Like electricity, it can illuminate an entire sprawling city, bringing light and convenience to millions, sustaining a civilization. But it can also incinerate everything to ash if not controlled properly, if misused. The true freedom you crave is not in the balance of your bank account, nor in how many luxury items you can buy, or how many magnificent mansions you own. It rather lies in your absolute ability to shape reality at will, to change the rules of your life and those around you, to make others comply with your will without resorting to overt coercion.
Think of an alpha wolf in a vast wild forest. It doesn't need money to control its pack. It needs unshakable authority, sharp intelligence in hunting strategy, and the ability to read every member of the pack, understanding their deepest fears and desires. Money, to that wolf, is merely hunted prey, a result of power, not its origin. Its freedom does not come from the amount of prey it hoards in its den, but from its ability to lead the pack to new resources, to unexplored territories, and the ability to growl, making other wolves retreat, submit to its absolute dominance. Money is raw, inert, inanimate bricks. Power is the grand architect, the one who creates great constructions. You might have an enormous pile of bricks, an unlimited treasure of money, but without a skilled architect, a sharp strategic mind, an iron will, you will never build a solid castle, an enduring empire. You will only have a chaotic heap, easily crumbled by storms and winds. Your true freedom lies in becoming that architect, the one who can transform inert bricks into a sturdy fortress, an unassailable empire, where you are the absolute master of your destiny, not a bird trapped in a golden cage, no matter how magnificent that cage may be. Seize that power. Become it. Finally, engrave this truth, a truth painstakingly researched and demonstrated through human history by Niccolò Machiavelli, the master of power and manipulation. Ultimate power lies not in the amount of money you accumulate in your bank account, nor in the value of luxurious mansions or prestige cars. It lies in your absolute ability to control those who crave money, crave security, crave your approval. True freedom is not the absence of all constraints,
nor is it the ability to do whatever you want without hindrance. Rather, it is the presence of a unique ability, the ability to choose your own constraints and skillfully transform those constraints into tools that serve your will, your grand objectives. The strong, those who are truly free, do not shy away from responsibility or fear burdens. On the contrary, they actively embrace it. They seek it out because they understand that every accepted responsibility is a new lever to manipulate reality, to shape the world to their will. They do not seek security in piled-up vaults, but in the absolute obedience, the unconditional loyalty of those around them, whom they have skillfully turned into pawns in the grand game of power. This is the brutalest truth, and also the beginning of your true freedom. When you have absorbed, understood, and begun to apply these cold yet effective principles, a completely new image of yourself will emerge, an image you never dared to dream of before. You will no longer be an individual swept away by the whirlpool of money or blindly, aimlessly obsessed with chasing what is called financial freedom. Instead, you will become the controller of flows, controlling the flow of money, of information, of opportunities, and even of human will. You will become the one who sows influence, who shapes outcomes. When you enter a room and intentionally fall silent, the entire room will spontaneously quiet down, because everyone knows that every word you utter carries weight, carries a deep intention, a subtle strategy hidden within. When you move, others will automatically yield, not because you give verbal commands, but because they sense an invisible energy of power emanating from you, a power that cannot be bought or shaken by anything. You will become a magnificent architect of your destiny, the one who draws the map of life and dictates the direction, rather than a sailor swept along by the currents of fate. You will not merely own material assets, you will own minds, hearts, wills, assets far more invaluable and enduring. You will no longer be a slave to money, but the absolute master of an unseen empire of finance and influence, where you hold all control. Applause is finite, but power echoes forever.